Mark.
Holy crap.
What
What's
are
up,
you
Bob?
reading?
I'm rereading one of the most epic comic book moments of the year, and that was in Night Terror's Green Lantern #2.
Yes, yes, we will talk about that. It was a big week for Night Terrors. We had one of the Night Terror propers, and then we also had 5 more of the tie-ins. We'll talk about all of that right after this. Welcome to another edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. Before we get started, make sure you are subscribed. Don't forget to go see Blue Beetle this coming weekend. Go to the theaters, please. Go to the theaters. Make sure people are seeing movies still. So,
In the
um,
theaters.
exactly. So, but before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Subscribe here. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we upload new content. Hit the like button. Hit a comment because that will enter you into a possibility to win the entire Night Terror saga. We'll get into that more at the end before we leave. But just leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want us to cover. But we have, speaking of what to cover, we have a lot to cover this week.
Yeah,
We
there's a
have
ton of content.
There's just so much stuff. So this was one of the weeks that we had the Night Terrors proper issue going on. So we had issue number 3 um, dropped this week. Again, it kind of starts off with a little dialogue by Deadman. Last time he was an anchorman. This time he's a Shakespearean actor. And then it kind of jumps right into where the last issue ended off, and that was, if you recall, one of the Sleepless Nights had just kind of torn Red Tornado in two.
Entwined, yeah.
Exactly, and that's kind of
Yeah,
where we start.
bombarding them at Terrifitech. They were in at Terrifitech.
Right, exactly. And so we start. Deadman is still possessing Batman. He is with Wesley Dodds. They are in Terrific Tech. They are the only 2 people that are there that are still awake. Everyone else is asleep.
That they know of.
That they know of, right? And so before we know it, though, we find from out of nowhere comes our friend Damian Wayne. He comes in. So.
Which, if you followed us in previous episodes, you know he has actually trained himself in the arts to overcome sleep and nightmares. He's pushing like 4 or 5 days straight now that he's willing himself awake. So he's next level, Damian. Like this kid's the truth.
Correct, and it actually is a callback. He talks about it's a callback to the Free Comic Book Day that where basically he had his run-in with insomnia, and so that's where he learned basically what to do. So.
Yeah, he saw the writing on the wall and knew he probably doesn't need to sleep if he doesn't want to.
Right, exactly. So they end up leaving Terrific Tech. They end up jumping off the building. They end up leaving Terrific Tech, and they end up talking some more. Deadman connects again with insomnia, and we see more of Insomnia's past and what brought him to this particular position. And it is pretty freaking scary.
Yeah, we see Insomnia in a recovery meeting, much like you would see in a movie for AA or anything, but this is a survivor's meeting, like this whole concept of survivor's guilt. He's clearly not wanting to be alive anymore. He's not wanting to sleep because every moment of the day he's thinking of his wife and his kids. He can't sleep without seeing them. And now that he's not sleeping, even when he's awake, he can't help but see them. They're there every time I blink my eyes. So the therapist there is telling him that we got to talk about it. We can get you better. And he ain't hearing none of that. He bashes him in the head with a coffee pot, takes a shard of glass, ends the therapist, and then grabs his own eyelids and removes them. That's why we have the design we have for Insomnia. That's not just paint on nothing. No, those are wounds around his eyes where he has removed his eyelids. And then he addresses Deadman specifically, who he knows is watching this memory of him, and Deadman just jumps awake. Ah!
Right. There's a reference again to something that the Justice League did to him. We don't know what it is still yet, but there's a reference to something that the Justice League did to him.
That he's blaming them for, clearly.
Exactly. But that whole sequence where he cuts off his eyelids is just freaky.
It was, and they did the whole art differently for
Yep.
like being in his memory and stuff. And it was almost like a color hold kind of situation, just all black and white with minimal colors to it. It was wicked.
Right. And so, but they determined then they kind of realized that they haven't found the Nightmare Stone in the dreaming yet, and they haven't found it in the waking yet either. So Sandman knows that there is actually a third place that you can go to, and this is what I love about this particular issue. Is this so much expands on the DC lore, both mystery and horror and all of those good things, because we have the introduction of the Hollow.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he's mentioned, like some people are asleep, it's not there. Some people are awake, it's not there. So they go back to the chemist lab where Wesley Dodds was a professional chemist, which led him to be able to do what he did as a crime fighter. He has the gas gun to put people to sleep, and he created that himself. So they want to go back to the lab where Wesley can get in front of these tools and create a gas to put them under, but not too far under, somewhere in the middle. He's sending them to, like Paul said, the hollow, where they have 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
Right. And so they worked in the Hollow, and they're working through the Hollow, and they end up at, again, an extension, a new part of the DC
Yes.
mystery. There was the House of Mystery, there's the House of Secrets, now we have the House of Horror.
So night, yeah, the House of Horrors, and they go in through half asleep, half awake, and Deadman's in this fantastic design suit.
Mhm.
And if McFarlane doesn't jump on that, I'd be
It's
surprised.
yeah, I when this first came out, it was one of the things was that this one of the goals of this series was to create toys. So
I did
not
not
I would
know
not
that.
be surprised. Yeah. And yeah,
So if he
it's kind
dropped
of
the
a
Wesley Dodds figure, I'm getting that Joker. Like,
exactly.
yeah, that would be awesome.
But
Zombie
a half
Dodds.
dead man, half Batman figure, that is just crazy.
Yeah,
You know?
I've already got the Deadman one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, in the
Um,
midst of all this happening, they go into the hollow. They find the House of Horrors. They're getting ready to go in, but in the real world, the sleepless nights have caught up to them. They're hot on their trails. They busted in. So Wesley's pretty much sword fighting with his sleepless nights, trying to protect the bodies of Batman and Damian while they are under and traversing the dreamscape, pretty much. And they get to the house and they go inside, and what they find are some of Boston or Deadman's memories are in there. They go inside and there's the circus. There's his body's laying there, and he says, "I know exactly what this is. It's my lies. I always tell people I was dead before I hit the ground, and it's the moment he died in the real world when he was shot from the trapeze and he fell. He says, I tell people I was dead before I hit the ground, but that wasn't true. I felt the bullet. I felt the impact, and you see him laying there with the gunshot wound." And Damien asks him, why is the nightmare showing us this? And he says, it's a test, like when Wesley Dodds stopped the cult leader in his time. The Nightmare Stone, it takes sacrifice. So the real dead man who looks like Batman goes down and grabs himself, who's laying there dying, and just tears himself open, rips his chest open, and pulls the Nightmare Stone out of him. So they come up out of the hollow, and that's where it ends from the explosion of him possessing it. They have the Nightmare Stone in hand in the real world, and it gets a little questiony with that last panel there.
right.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yep. You see the skulls in Batman's eyes. Batman possessed by Deadman with the Nightmare Stone in his eyes. So.
Yeah, and his comment is, we have the Nightmare Stone, we can use it to stop insomnia, and then my dreams will come true. So I believe that there's going to be an element of shutting down the stone. It's going to be insomnia is one thing. The stone was hidden for a reason. It's going to have its own set of issues and problems that they're going to have to deal with it separately. So we'll see where it goes.
Right, and we're promised the truth about insomnia in the next issue. So hopefully we'll get the final part of exactly his backstory and everything, and exactly who he is, how he came to be who he was, and everything. So great issue. Totally moved the
Yeah.
story forward a lot. Totally expanded the DC mythos, which is always great as well. Gave us some new things. Yeah, I could not say enough good things about this particular issue. Loved it.
You can try. Go ahead.
Loved it. All right.
Yeah, the
So
series as a whole continues to impress. It really does.
Green Lantern.
You
First of all,
wanna
I'll say
start
this is my pick for both issue 1 and issue 2. My pick for the two best covers of the entire series.
Yeah, easily. But you want to start with that one. You want a one bad day this episode and just start with the best and work backwards. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, sure, why not?
You want to? Okay.
Because
Okay. So this
by the
was
time we get to the last one, we just say, "Oh yeah, and this one came out too."
fair enough. This right here has been the best. This was the best single issue that they've done for Night Terrors tie-ins, hands down. Nothing's come close to this. Punchline one was fantastic, well written. This was the total package. This wasn't just like a dynamic, creative way to tell a haunting story. This is what comic book tie-ins are meant to be. So, the concept of the tie-in for Green Lantern is just showcasing who Hal Jordan is and going through and spotlighting some of the bigger moments in his history. That's like that for a lot of these. Rightfully so. We're in the dawn of DC. If people are jumping into these titles and these number ones, these are your books that give you your history lessons. They're presenting it to Hal in the form of his nightmares, showing him his failures. Your dad dying, you losing Coast City, becoming Parallax, this and that. And that's where it ended with number one. And then it's like Jeremy Adams just flipped on a light switch for all of us. It's one of those things like the Martha thing. We all know Martha Kent. We all know Martha Wayne. We never put that together till Snyder threw it in our face. And that was this moment where Jeremy Adams reminded us Green Lantern doesn't do fear. And
Right,
it was like a
exactly.
slap in the face. Like we start with the nightmares just taunting him. And he just stops and he shrugs. He's like, yo, do you know who I am? And he just starts roasting the nightmares. He's like, starts hitting them with the ring. He's like, fear's my thing. He's like, no,
Yeah.
look at your failures. I found them in the hidden this way. It's like, bro, those weren't hidden away in my memories. They're back there because they've been dealt with. I overcame them. I'm in front of them. And now you're in front of me. And like, he's just going at this dude. And like, he's like, find my darkness. He goes, darkness, you must not have heard my oath. And he just was relentless. Like Green Lantern was like a Terminator in this book, chasing
He really
the
was.
nightmare.
I was going to
Wouldn't
say,
let
it
him
was every
escape.
time he tried to get away, he's like, "You think you're going to run away from me?"
Back there, tormenting them, beat them to the point of waking up, just tormented the nightmare. It was amazing. And it
Right.
popped
And there was,
back to where we started.
yeah, and there's a great, I mean, there's a lot of great lines in there,
There
surprisingly, with
was.
Jeremy Adams. But the one thing that I really liked is he wrote that fear is the opposite of choice.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and so it's like, you know what? It's because a while ago it used to be that Hal Jordan had no fear when he first started, and then they kind of tweaked it a little bit. And not that he had no fear, but he was able to overcome all of his fears, and so
Overcome
that's
it.
where the choice comes from. Okay, and so it's
Mhm.
like, you know what? You choose to be afraid. You don't, and so if it's a choice. Don't tell me about choices because I'm the king of choices, and I'm like, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
it was so good, and it was
And
just like
this
such a badass, yeah,
and this sums up the issue in a nutshell. The entire issue was just this was the nightmares trying to personify something that they perceived as his nightmares failure and him just destroying them just nonstop. It
yeah.
was insanely cool. And then the backup story was with Sinestro, the same exact concept, layout, but Sinestro took a totally different path. He looked at all these things in his life and it fueled his rage. And now his mission has never been clearer. And we're going to see what that mission is inside of the Green Lantern proper title. So if you're not reading this, jump on it. There's been 2 issues plus the Night Terror ones. This is about to slap. Everyone's raving still about how good that last Flash run is that Jeremy Adams wrote. Don't miss out on being on the front end of Green Lantern. I'm telling you, you don't have to wonder anymore. We've seen what he's doing with Hal. This is amazing.
Yeah, and the teaser for the next issue says Sinestro returns. At the end of the backup story, we see Sinestro like we saw him on that variant cover from the very first issue, the urban Sinestro, whatever,
Street level
street level
Sinestro.
Sinestro. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So it's all about to come to a head. So totally agree with you. All right.
we're going good to
Flash.
backwards. Okay. Yes, I got them in the right order. This was awesome too, man. This was so good.
hmm
All right, so
Yeah,
premise to the Flash ones, like it's the same thing. They kind of were highlighting some failures in a way. They introduced this Wally is dying. He got into a fight with Gorilla Grodd, got impaled by the Spear of Destiny because something was in the Speed Force. There was a monster in the lightning. Is that what he called it?
yep, Monster in the Lightning. Yep.
there was a monster in the lightning that was slowing him down, and he ended up getting stabbed. Barry's already went and handled Gorilla Grodd, and he's chasing down the monster in the lightning. He runs into the Speed Force, and he sees something in it. It looks tainted. It looks poisoned, like something has infected it. And we find out from the beginning of this issue that he's been running, trying to outrun it, trying to save Wally because he's not even fast enough to do it. And he's been doing this on repeat, much like Dark Flash did in the movie. And much like Dark Flash in the movie, who has been altered by it, that's how we get introduced to Barry in this. He looks monstrous. His head's down. He's got no neck. He's like hulking in ways. His body's got dysmorphia. He goes and sees his family at the hospital where while he's dying, they're urging him to stay and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets the motivational kick in the butt to, you can't stay here. You have to save him. So he continues this process. He keeps doing it, and he's still not fast enough. But there's one person out there that is fast enough, and he needs his Speed Force. So he goes through time to the Flash Museum and finds Reverse Flash Eobard Thawne himself and gets into a tuffle with him in the museum. Kills him, takes his Speed Force, justifying it as Wally's worth more than you. He's got everything he needs now. All the Speed Force that's available for him to absorb, he's got it. And he takes off. And now he's fast enough. Now he can do it. Now he can save him. And he gets there, and he's still not. The monster is still faster. And it gets revealed that he is the monster. It's the paradox of him going over and over again. And he's about to snap. He's about to lose it. And then he gets tackled out of his nightmare by the actual fastest man alive, none other than Wally West, who's alive and well and not asleep in the real world now. And it's funny. Barry, this is another book where it actually gets addressed that Wally is the fastest one there is. Period.
Yes.
No hands or buts about it. Like Barry says it, Wally says it at the end. Like,
yeah, it has been established in canon that Wally is the fastest Flash.
And what's really cool is Barry was asleep. Like in the real world, in the real comic world here, Barry was asleep, but he's been sleepwalking this whole time at hyperspeed. Like Wally had to run him down and tackle him because he's been asleep, just burning up the town, just going. I thought that was a fantastic concept. Like, what happens when a speedster sleepwalks? Night Terror.
Yeah, and I also think that it was kind of almost like a bookend type of thing. If you remember at Rebirth, right? What Barry saved Wally,
lightning
and now here Wally saves Barry, right? So it's kind of like a very nice symmetrical type thing. So
yeah, it was really cool, and they had the whole hug it out moment and everything. You're like, dude, wake up! We need you. Let's go.
Right.
No time to process. The world's burning. All right, let's see if I get this right.
I'm gonna go with Zatanna.
Oh, we're on fire, bro. We're on fire. Yes.
Yeah.
This was solid. Yeah, this was solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't any bad ones this week.
No, and much to your delight, there were very few backwards words.
Very few, but they did 3 times completely slow me down. I just don't read backwards good, Paul. I don't know what it is. I'm just so good at reading forward.
Yeah, I know.
I suck at reading backwards, and I refuse to skip over what she's saying. I have to know. But long story short, we're still in the labyrinth inside the basement of the Hall of Justice. She's still being chased by the Sleepless Knights. Robot Man has been converted. We see what happens when you're attacked by a Sleepless Knight. They can monster you, and you just toss me there. I'm sorry. And dealing with her fears. Her father is being thrown in her face. Previously in the last issue, they took advantage of there being 2 of them by switching villains and facing them that way. But it was really just one of those you have to just overcome it kind of things. You are worthy. You are worth it. You can do it. Blah, blah, blah. And she musters up the courage. And like her father was throwing in her face that whenever someone uses magic, someone pays the consequence, and you never allow it to be yourself, Zatanna. That's why you are never going to be good enough. Blah, blah, blah. Well, she out magics these jokers, and she overcomes it. And she pulls the old okey doke, the little projection of herself, and she gets she gets Robot Man converted back to normal, and pretty much everyone goes running from him. If I remember correctly.
And exactly. And at the end, they're basically heading towards, which happens in a lot of these. They're heading towards the main battle that will happen. That seems to be happening in Night's End.
Hex and Violent style.
Yeah, exactly. And if you like Robot Man and Zatanna, there is a rumor that that's going to be an actual comic come the fall.
I guess it'll be called Hex and Violence. I think
Hex and Violence. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now these last 2, I'm gonna I'm gonna actually go with Shazam next. Okay.
Dude, we got the same order this week. Nice, nice.
Mhm.
This one was straightforward. Mary Marvel, she recognizes that she's in a dream. She goes around and checks on all of her relatives and her siblings and see that they're dreaming. And okay, let me check on Darla first. I always check on Darla first. Darla's sitting here scared, looking at giants in her nightmare. She says she'll be fine. He goes to fly away and goes, "Nah, let me go back and help her." And she just Shazams, charges her up just by saying it near it, turns her, and they fight it out together. And she blah blah blah. Next kid, and we go on that same cookie cutter formula. Wakes them all up, make sure they're all good in their nightmares. Then she goes and faces Billy again, and Billy is beast moding her because he's Billy. You know, deep down inside of Mary, she's always going to be second fiddle to Captain Marvel. He was first. He's the original. They all get their power from him. Even though Mary now has her own power set, she still has that in the back of her mind. But have no fear, because before she can blink, the whole family shows up and she has them on her back, and she never has to do it alone. Ironically, yes, she does, because none of them have actual powers in the real world. So it's kind of cool that in her nightmare,
Right.
she's worried about being alone, because outside of the nightmares, her and Billy are. They're not able to share the power right now. So it was kind of cool in that sense. Mark Waid did good with this one. I think it's too crowded of a book to be farther up on today's list, since we're kind of doing these in order. There's just too many characters. I'm not a fan of the Shazam family. Give me Captain Marvel, give me Mary, and give me Freddy. That's all I need. That's already enough. You still have Thawny Tiger and the Wizard. It's still a huge cast. It doesn't need to be bigger for me.
If there's only one family member, you got to give me Uncle Dudley.
Me, Uncle Dudley.
Then I'm good. Okay, and then that leaves for last.
I need Mentor.
Mentor, that's right. Robin, which
got
actually
that
should be
Liam
called
Stark
Robins.
variant. Yeah. So didn't care. Just like you said.
There were some,
Reddit.
but we said the last one will just be, this came out too. There were some good parts to what I thought. There were. It's good to see the two of them working together. There was some, identifying one of them as actually was, I believe it was Jason, who said it's funny because we have the worst Robin paired with the Robin who thinks he's the worst. So that's kind of their biggest fears is, Jason thinks he's the worst Robin, and Timothy thinks that he's the and Timothy thinks that he's the worst Robin. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
They? But do they though? Like, how many times can we use this trope for these characters and then overcome this trope for these characters? There's a better story to be told with these people, and they did not do it. It was just. To me, that's boring. I mean, there's plenty of people, again, like I'm complaining about what I'm praising about Green Lantern. So I feel kind of hypocritical in that sense. If this is people coming into titles during the dawn of DC, it serves a great purpose. It really does. But as somebody who's like I've rode with Jason Todd for years. Like I love Red Hood. So like this is a very common thing and everything. So for me, it just wasn't engaging enough. Like where Green Lantern made it so cool, this one didn't have that cool factor with it. It was very informative for the characters, though. I'll give you that. And Liam Sharp cover.
Yeah, I mean, it was to me obviously because I had it last too. It was the worst of the 5 issues, but I still found some things that I enjoyed in it. Some of the character development I thought so.
It wasn't Poison Ivy, and that's a plus.
That's true. That's true. Your mileage may vary. We always say, right?
Yes.
So. But that's it. That's all of the 6 issues that came out this particular week. This coming week, we have just 5 because it'll be a skip week for the main title. But again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the comment. Comment because we are going to, on September 6th at 9 o'clock, that's one of the in-between weeks when we do Guess That Key on this channel, we will have a live deep DC Comics deep dive on the entire Night Terrors saga. And if you comment, go back and look at all the videos. Comment on all of the videos for the Night Saga. We will pick one of the videos first, and then we will pick a comment from one of the videos, and that person will win the entire Night Terrors saga, meaning the entire Night Terrors as well as the Neon Ink covers, as well as all the tie-ins as well. So it's going to be huge. It's like 40 some issues.
43, I think.
Exactly. And make sure that you join us that night live because we also will be giving something away to someone in the chat that night. What will we be giving away? We will be giving away the Night Terrors proper series, as well as all the Neon covers. So not the tie-ins, but the Night Terrors proper title. And we will be giving away a this is Justice League of America number 154 from 1978. It is an appearance by Dr. Destiny against the Justice League in an 8.5. The cover is by Michael William Kaluta, who was a famous horror artist. He still is, but he did a lot more work back in the 70s. He's most famous probably for doing the Shadow series along with Denny O'Neil back in the 70s. So just a little bit something different to give away to someone who's going to be in the chat that night. So make sure you join us again September 6th, 9 o'clock, right here on this channel for a special live edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. And if you're interested in coming on and talking about it, the more people we can get, the better. We want to hear from everybody. So let us know. Reach out to Mark or myself and let us know if you want to come on. We'll make sure you get the link before we start. But hopefully you guys can join us. So, but that's going to be it for this edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. I am Paul. He is Mark.
But we are Legion.
And you are now leaving Sector 28.